Welcome to another little series, again on politics. This time I'm concentrating on the Scottish Parliament elections on May the 5th, 2011. Now before you ask why I'm not covering the Welsh, Northern Irish elections and the alternative vote referendum, I will touch on them, but the one that affects me the most is the Scottish Parliament elections. Now, I live in Scotland, and to be perfectly honest, it actually affects me a little more than the Westminster elections, as most of the key things I value are devolved to Scotland. So what, do you ask, is devolution? Well, basically, it means certain issues that would normally be run by Westminster government are given to a specific area of the country to control. In Scotland, this is education, agriculture, justice, and the ability to add 3p extra to the pound onto income tax, which Scotland has never done. They had the option since 1999, but they've never used it. So, why does Scotland have a separate parliament? And for those outside of the UK, why does it matter? Surely the whole country's infrastructure is run from those Gothic-style chambers in London. Well, yeah. The money comes from there, but to be honest, what would London know about the specific needs of a country 300 miles north who has a cultural history that predates the Act of Union 300 years ago? This is basically the argument for devolution that's raged in Scotland for longer than you think. So where does it stem from? Well, Scotland has basically wanted some more autonomy from down south since they signed the Act of Union in 1707. Scotland has more or less been muted in its struggle for autonomy until 1934 when the Scottish National Party was formed. There has been skirmishes beforehand, but this is when the major turning points happened. But it wasn't really until 1967 before the SNP actually had any political clout in Westminster when Willie Ewan won a by-election in Hamilton. And that's how they started to get their parliamentary clout. The SNP's chief belief is that Scotland should be a separate country outside the UK, but a modern state within the EU, and devolution, as far as they were seen, was a step in the correct or the right direction. Now, if you have been in Scotland, if you live in Scotland, you know there was another devolution vote before the one in 1997. In 1979, Scotland had a vote on whether it wanted devolution then, and in the end, 40% of the electorate had to support the move. And although over half of them, half the people who voted said yes, not enough of the electorate of the whole actually voted. 64% of the potential electorate actually voted, 51% of them said yes, but that in the overall scheme of things was 40% less than the total people who could vote. And it fell through. A little bit confusing, still does my head a little, so don't worry, you're not the only one. In 1997 though, Scotland was given a second opportunity to gain devolution as part of the new Labour government manifesto pledges. This time the answer was overwhelmingly yes, and in 1999 the Scottish Parliament elections were held for the first time. This is the fourth one they've had since 1999. They had one in 2003, one in 2007, and this year, and they had one in 1999 of course. I will cover the 2007 election next video. But how does it work? Well, there are 129 members of the Scottish Parliament, MSPs, up for grabs, seats for them up for grabs, using a form of proportional representation. It's not a pure form, and I'll explain a bit more why. You vote twice, but after all the votes have been counted, the Parliament should more or less represent the actual percentage of votes cast for each overall party that stood in the elections. So how do they do that? Well, you have the constituencies like the Westminster Parliament, and it's first past the post like the Westminster Parliament in these constituencies. There's 73 of them. You vote one slip of paper for your candidate that you want to pick, just one vote, one cross, and the person with the most votes gets the seat. The other 56 are called list candidates, and basically the parties will publish a list a few weeks before the election of who their preferred candidates would be if they were elected in this list system. So for the SNP, for example, their top MSPs would be if they don't win constituency seats, their list starts at Alex Salmond, Nicola Sturgeon, and then it moves on down from there. Labour would be Ian Gray, and then moving down from there, Tavish Scott would be the Lib Dems, Annabel Goldie would be the Conservatives. So basically, that they have a preferential list of which members of their party they would like to be MSPs, and depending on the number of votes the parties get, which I'll explain, will dictate how many MSPs they'll get, and also how many constituencies the candidates have won outright for the parties. So you vote on another slip of paper for this, for your favourite party this time, not your favourite candidate, but for your favourite party. The vote is then totaled up with the first past the post vote and split into 8 regions across the country. Out of each region, 7 MSPs are chosen depending on how many 7 MSPs are chosen. Depending on how many constituency MSPs have been selected for each party will dictate the actual number of MSPs the party could gain in the Scottish Parliament. For example, in the 2007 election for the Central Scotland area, Labour won 8 out of the 10 seats for the first past the post vote, with the SNP winning 2 of them. So when the overall vote came out, the share, SNP added 5 more, the Lib Dems and Conservatives got 1 more MSP each, to try and reflect the overall share of the vote as it was totalled up. It's not accurate, but it's a lot closer to voters' actual intentions as you would ever get in a first-past-the-post system. The actual persons who would be elected, when based on each of the party's preferences, are on the list of top candidates, which I mentioned earlier on. And basically, that's how the 129 MSPs who sit in Parliament will more or less reflect the actual vote of the Scottish people. It's not exact, because you obviously get the minority parties that get a vote. But, you know, in the past, 1999 and 2003, you had socialist MSPs, Tommy Sheridan in 99, and then 5 others in 2003. You had a couple of the Greens and Independent in the 2007 election, but it kind of tightened in. And I'm going to explain that a bit more next time. And I think that's enough for this video. But as I say, next time I'll be looking at the 2007 elections, what happened, and what is set to change this time round in regards to the seats, the parties, and everything else, and what the political situation is, because it's a lot different from last time. So until then, thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.